We start this evening down with wives on page 10. We talked a little bit about husbands. See, I'm just touching on some of these things. We increase as we go along and begin to really put together the thing that we want to be talking about. Now it says, nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife even as himself, and the wife see that she reverence her husband. Now, we've brought that up several times, and the thing that I want you to notice is the word reverence her husband. If you do things God's way, it always works. If you do things against God's way, it never works. Even if it appears to work on the outside, the inside is suffering. You may say, well, I don't do that. Now, when the Bible says, rejoice with the wife of thy youth, that's in there for a reason. When he said cleave to your wife, that's in there for a reason. When he said leave father and mother, that's in there for a reason. If that person doesn't leave home, there's problems going to follow somewhere down the way. If you don't rejoice with the wife of your youth and get to enjoying her, you can actually get to a position and place in life where you literally enjoy the very presence of your wife. In fact, you don't want to be away from her. We were in the airport recently, and wifey asked if she could get something there at this little store. And I said, we can get anything you want to. And suddenly this lady behind the counter said, how long y'all been married? I said, almost 47 years. Said, whoo, that's a record breaker. It oughtn't to be a record breaker for people my age, but the thing of it is, it is. And the reason it is because we have violated one or more of the laws of God. Now, you don't like the word law. All right, I can't help whether you like it or not. There are certain laws that will never pass away. One of them is rejoice with the wife of your youth. When you do that, your husband, your wife will begin to reverence you. The word reverence is not kneeling down and worshiping you. It has to do with a respect. It has to do with a not even lordship, but a honorable position he's in. I trust my husband. And husbands, if you're not trustworthy, you can start being trustworthy. You can start tonight. I know that people talking about it's going to take time. How much time is it going to take? The time depends on you, not God. The thing of it is you can change instantly. I know you can. When I used to be a cusser back in the days when I was a bad boy, I cussed. Cussing was a part of my life. I cussed at everything. I used to have a cigarette in my hand, try to work on my car, and got mad at the cigarette because the smoke's getting in my eyes. I cussed at the cigarette. Well, how dumb can you get? The cigarette got in there because I put it in there. And it smoked because I lit it. And so what did the cigarette have to do with it? It's that unchanged heart. But once you get to the place where you see the fallacy of that and change, how long do you think it... When I made a decision to stop cussing, how long do you think it took me to quit? They say, well, you can't stop cussing right away. You can if you decide it's wrong. I stopped cussing in 30 seconds. That's it. You know how long it took me to stop smoking? 1/2 a second. I just grabbed the cigar out of my mouth, chewing the back of it was in my mouth, spit it out, and said, from this day henceforth now and forever, I'll never use this again. Now, I'm going to tell you that so you get this idea. All right, my marriage is not working. Whose fault is it? Well, it's not mine. Well, already you're in problem. Because if you spent your time praying and fasting and seeking the face of God for your marriage, something will give one time or the other. Now, what happens? You give up. Right on the very moment when there could be a breakthrough, something gets in the way. Sometimes wives are misused and abused. And I tell you, this is an actual happening that I'm going to tell you about. There was a woman who prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed that she would be delivered from her husband. He's getting meaner all the time. And she began to intercede and cry out to God for her deliverance. He was abusing her and misusing her. One day this man come home and he told his wife, he said, I took out a big life insurance for us. And she thought, well, okay. He had never acted like that before. But he took out a big life insurance for himself, so in case he dies, his wife would have this insurance. You know, it was only several months later and he was killed. And she lived on that money, which was a heap of money. Now, here's what she said the Lord told her. It was because of your intercession I had to remove that man because he'd never change. And I had him give you that so you could be supported the rest of your life. And you say, well, I don't believe that. I don't care if you don't. You know that's all right with me. The only thing I'm saying is that if that wife stands her ground, not in fighting, not in defense as such, but an appeal to heaven. When the Bible says that the wife is a weaker vessel, doesn't mean she is inferior to you. Just because the wife is to submit to you does not make her inferior to you. You see, as I said in one of the other sessions, as a overseer, I am not superior to you. I'm in the position and the place where God has called me to be, and that is not a question. I don't even have a question whether I'm in the will, plan, and purpose of God. I know where I'm going, I know what I'm doing, and I know what I want out of y'all. So I'm standing in the gap. That does not make me inferior to you, or you inferior to me. Pardon me, let's try it again. I don't make me superior to you and you inferior to me. Everybody that's in the will of God is in a very special position. And you are there, and the blessing of the Lord can rest upon you in that position. I don't care who you are, what your name is. Now, when it says, I will therefore that the younger women marry, bear children, guide the house, give none occasion to adversary to speak reproachfully. Those of you which would like to be married and you don't know at this point how you're ever going to get married. There's nobody seems to be in the category for you. I was in that position one time. My dad was sure, since I was so critical, he said, that I was going to be a bachelor. And I said I'd rather be a bachelor than I would have married the wrong woman. So one day my dad come to me and he said, Daniel, you go to Pennsylvania a lot. I want to let you off this weekend. You go up to Pennsylvania and see if you can round up a girl. I went up there, and I don't know nobody, but these boys got together and got me the prettiest girl they could find. To date. I looked at that beautiful thing and I said, she's too pretty for me. I was literally uneasy. I said, man, I don't want a woman that pretty. Now, my wife is a beauty all the way through, but I'm telling you, I wasn't after beauty. What I was after is some character that is going to please me. So it went on, and it looked like it was over. Because I couldn't find nothing, and my dad didn't give me much encouragement. It was kind of, you know, you really are critical. What are you trying to find? The perfect woman? But you know, one day, down at that little church down here near the railroad track. Oh, y'all know where that church is at, some of you. Little church down there by the railroad track. There's an automobile pulled in there, parked down along that railroad track. I'm standing up at the church, and I said, "Whoo, there's my wife." I don't know who she is. Never seen her in my life before. Total stranger. She's my wife. There she is. And my brother-in-law standing beside of me, hunched me like this. He said, Dan, there's your wife. I said, you stay out of my business. I'll take care of it. So I looked and I thought, now which one of these girls is my wife? Which one is it? I felt sure one of them was, but I wonder what their names are. The one I eyed was Queen Esther. Do you know she's my wife? And it all happened along the railroad track. The man knew where to park that car. And you know what? Some of you, it says, I therefore that the young women marry. All right, you say I'm not young. Well, how old are you? If you're not 100, you can still maybe get married. Now, I tell you what you do. It's talking about the women now. You take that Bible verse and lay your finger on it and say, all right, Lord, here's what the apostle said. And here's what he said under the inspiration of God. And here's what you are saying to me, get married. But for the life of me, I can't figure out who it's going to be. Send him around, please. Nothing happens. Some people sit back there and wait till the father-in-law says it's ready to go. You know what I mean? I'm not going any further than that. So, now listen, all you unmarried people, you have my attention. And you really do. In fact, today I prayed for you unmarried people. You're not going to have a lot of choice in this world, but the person you choose is not inferior. You know that? And I'll tell you, husbands and wives, you can love each other if you're as ugly as a troll. Love doesn't come by beauty anyway. Love comes from an experience with each other. Now, what about repairing a marriage or a family? The family's in a mess. We've goofed. Anybody ever been like that? What are we going to do? All right, I'm going to say something to you. A marriage or a family status, all right, let's see if it's, all right, it is possible that this marriage could be salvaged. It is possible. B, it's questionable whether you could ever salvage this. And the third one, C, it's impossible to salvage this marriage. Now, all three of them are possible. Because you're going to go beyond human intellect. And now Paul is out there on the water, and neither sun nor stars in many days appeared, and no small tempest laid on us, and all hope that we should be saved was taken away. Your hope may be gone. As far as you're concerned, it's over. There's a family that had the worst condition that you could just about get. It was a total chaos. It was everybody's mad at everybody. The family's in a mess. Totally impossible. But I know there's a Bible verse that says, the things which are impossible with men are possible with God. They fell into the C category here of impossible. You no use trying. It's just no use trying. Well, why are you spending my time then if it's not use trying? Doesn't that sound strange that they come to me when it's no hope? You see, the fact of the matter is it isn't that bad. You can look at the situation in a different way. All right, let's say that's your car. Somehow the car is not running. Can't get it started. It's hopeless. You can't run it. But did you know if you can get the right repair guy, it'll run? You can fix it up. You see, a marriage is totally impossible. Remember, God said it's impossible with you, but not with him. When Paul's out there on that water, and it's all over. But an angel of the Lord appeared and said, Paul, everybody's going to be salvaged. Everybody's going to be saved. So you don't give it up, because the worst of condition sometimes is what brings it to the position of rescue. Some churches, which got at the lowest they've ever been, everybody's mad at everybody. And the pastor just decides to give up. No, don't give up. There's a thing called neology. Maybe you don't call it that. You may call it prayer. Bend those knees. There's something about bending the knees that indicates help needed. It's all right to pray like this. It's all right to pray kneeling. It's all right to pray whatever way, even laying. But sometimes, if you're really in it desperate, bow that knee and say, Lord, my husband and I, or my wife and I, promised that we would love each other until death does us part. Of all the marriages I've had, I do not know of any of them that's divorced. There may be one that was shaking at one time, but I can't say of any that was divorced. None. And you know what I think a lot of it is the way you marry these folks. That anointing power of God coming on that marriage. When I lay hands on you and say, would you place your hands together? I say, in the name of the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, I hereby pronounce you husband and wife. It's over. That instant, heaven says it's sealed. It's a matter. That's it. Then we do a few things, and then I place the blessings of Abraham upon them, and I don't have that with me. Maybe I'll think about bringing it tomorrow, maybe. And I begin to say, may the blessings of Abraham rest upon you, that everything you set your hands to do may be blessed. May you and your family be blessed, and may everything you set your hand to do be blessed. And you know what? I've had so many people tell me, would you pray that blessing over me? I tell you what, there's something about salvaging a marriage that has that blessing on it. Once that blessing is pronounced, it's not going to leave. It's still there. What the man of God has said to you, when he bound you together, you're actually bound together. What he said to you is valid. Heaven has put its signature on it. And heaven also heard the blessings you placed upon it. The word, in death does he part, until in death doth he part, is still a part of those marriage vows, I suppose, and most of the people's married that way. And even if you messed up, folks, there is a cross to take care of those who messed up. You can't undo what you did. The thing I'm saying is, let's not get to the place where we just throw up our hands and say, well, it's over. Let the Lord work it out step by step, moment by moment. Dealing with single family problems. Single family problems can come about because of death, divorce, separation, etc. It may be a real problem. Any violation of God's word is sure to end in disaster, because it opens the door to the attack of the devil. When something happens, there's people who have had separation, had death, and so forth, and whether it's a mother or father, they have to take the position now of both parents. And that takes grace. But it's not impossible. That it can be done. My brother-in-law died, left my sister with a family to take care of. And here she is, taking care of the family. And then she remarried later to a fella. And therefore she had a breadwinner. But she had to do things. They had a farm at the time. She had to keep things moving. Then 2 of her girls was killed in an automobile accident at one time. And she really had a problem. And then one of her girls, a sled runner ran through her head. And they gathered up her brains and said she'd never be normal, and the girl was a school teacher after that. And she's the one that wrote some of the music for me. I wrote the music, but she put the notes where they belong with some of my stuff, the same girl. I'm saying to you that I had a sister who went through all kind of disaster. But one thing she did, she kept her eyes focused on the Lord all the time. And she could come through. So you may be a divorcee or something like this, and you're lonely. I tell you, this thing of let me warn you. You're going to find teaching today that says you're married to the Lord, and that's really a devilish thing, the way they use it. There's a woman who has that teaching and heard that, you're married to the Lord. And she tells stories like this, that the Lord lays me down in roses and has an affair with me. Now listen, you don't have to be too smart to know better than that. That's blasphemy to the letter. Brother and sister, that's blasphemy to the letter. But that's what's going on with this thing. That's called, and there Jesus does say, the Bible does say married to the Lord. The Bible does say. But it's not that kind of a thing. I tell you what we got to do is get our minds straightened out. And that's what's going to salvage everything that's going on out there. Because here's what happens. Satan's going to hit you if you don't know what you're doing, and you can get it done right. Just say, okay, I'm a victim of this or I'm a victim of that. We're going to go through with it. You may be a victim of divorce, and therefore your children are a victim of divorce. You have to learn to overcome the hurts and the wounds and the guilt that goes along with all that. Well, if I'd have did this right, or if I'd have done this different, or the other side is that somebody else is always to blame. Folks, the thing we do, let's face it. The guilty party come forth and say, well, it's my fault. Now where do we go from here? Because of death of your spouse, and now you're dealing with a new spouse. What are you going to do then? I heard a preacher say one time, it's the other way around. The husband said to his new wife, well, my wife always did it this way. She said, that man was married to the best woman ever lived. I don't do anything right. His first wife always did it right. You know what? If you're going to get married a second time and your wife dies, you don't come along and just say, well, now we treat her different. She needs love. She needs understanding. Because in some circumstances, she lost her husband too. Just dealing with stepchildren, my children, his children, our children. And that can mean a problem. But it doesn't have to. Folks, before we get finished here, I'm going to tell you how to bring all this stuff together. You let the Lord work your circumstances out, not me. I don't have the authority to do that. But I can tell you one thing, God's bigger than your problems. I know of only one person that wanted to get married so bad, and she never got married. And she said to the Lord, okay, Lord, I realize that I have no beauty at all. And my pastor told me that I don't have any beauty. And she said, now, Lord, if you don't want me to get married, I want you to take the desire of marriage away from me. Because if I'm never going to get married, I can't be fighting it the rest of my life. And she said, I prayed that prayer and I never had a desire to ever get married again. Never. She said, then all I had a desire to do was minister to people. Honor widows that are widows indeed. But if anyone, a widow have children or nephews, let them learn first to show piety at home and to requite their parents, for that is good and acceptable before God. Now she that's a widow indeed and destitute, trusteth in God and continues in supplication and prayer night and day. But she that liveth in pleasure is dead while she liveth. And these things give in charge that they may be blameless. Let me say to you tonight that your widows need to be taken care of. We have widows in this church. There's widows in some of the other churches. But in those churches, somebody needs to be there to minister to those widows. There's also people in our churches that had a bad marriage and it turned out bad. And we don't accuse them. What we do is help them over the hump. What we don't need is a bunch of accusations. Start praying for them. If you don't think that somebody's doing it right, pray for them. Don't go and pass your opinion about everything. And the younger widows refuse, for when they have begun to wax wanton against Christ, they will marry, having damnation because they've cast off their first faith. And withal, they learn to be idle, wandering from house to house, and not only idle, but tattlers and busybodies, speaking things that they ought not. I will, therefore, that the younger women marry, bear children, guide the house, and give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachably. Now, we had that before, just a little bit the last part there. A talebearer is a bad deal. Churches need to pray. I tell you, folks, I have spent a many hour praying and pleading grace and mercy on people that's got a tongue that's not run right. Railing on their husbands, railing on their wives, railing on their children, railing on their pastor, railing on everything. I'll tell you what, that prayer means something. I don't get paid for praying. But I tell you, in the wee hours of the morning when some of y'all are sleeping, you'll find me praying. I'm not sleeping. I can't sleep. Somebody's hurting. And folks, as a pastor person, I can tell you that if you hurt, I hurt. If you have a problem, I got a problem. If you have a longing in your heart that's not fulfilled, I got a longing in my heart that's not fulfilled. And I can say to you today that I care. And I care about your marriage. I care whether you're having a good time or whether you're not. I care whether the wife is submitting to the husband the way the Bible says, not the way you're talking. This submitting stuff is not what we're talking about. We're talking about a cooperation, a teamwork, a working together, submitting to each other. As the head of the house, I'm the head of the house. But at the same time, my wife has some things to say too. What you're going to have to do is rebuild that confidence. Say, Lord, my wife needs to have confidence in me. I have to have confidence in her. We're going to build confidence. Because if you have a family without building that confidence and trust, at my home, we wouldn't have thought of going to my mother and complaining about my dad. That would have been an unheard of thing. We wouldn't even have had a desire to. But I tell you what, folks, my mother, when Pap wasn't around, she's the captain of the host. And I tell you, when you got a daddy that's a general like my daddy was, and a mother which is a sergeant, You better know that you straighten up. I can count on my hands, how many whippings I got in my life. I didn't need them. Because when mother got finished with you, you almost had to have her pray for you. But you know what? She taught us how to do things. I don't ever remember my mother or daddy saying, hey, go do this. Sit there and be told a second time. There wasn't no second chance. When she said do it, that means do it. And you better do it while you get a chance. Because I tell you, you'll be praying for the rapture. But you know, that's how you teach them to go. I felt confidence. I could trust my mom. I could trust my dad. I remember, folks, one time, I will tell you all a silly story. At school, I was in the school, we was looking out the window, and a boy said to me, Ross, he said, there goes a rabbit. Well, of all things, I grew up on a farm, what's a rabbit, you know? And I said, of all things, a rabbit. This teacher, I didn't know, was out there the first grade teacher was out there overhauling somebody in the vestibule, and she heard that, and she come in and grabbed me around the neck and shook me, and I thought, what the world's going on? And grabbed me, and out that door she went and took me in the first grade room, and set me down and slammed me on that seat. And I said, what's going on? I don't have any idea what's going on. She says, you sit there. Oh, I tell you what, I come out of that place, and I'm not saying I did it right. Oh, I'm on two different stories. Now I got to finish this, and I got on the wrong one. But anyway, you know, as soon as she delivered me from the concentration camp, I went to the principal. I said, I'm going home. He said, no, Danny, you stay here. I said, no. I said, my pap will take up with me. I said, that woman gave me a going over and giving me a kick and everything else, and I don't even know what it's about today. I don't know what ever happened. I didn't do nothing. And he said, okay. I said, I want your permission to walk home. I walked home. I said to my dad, I said, I'm not going back to school. Tell that woman to apologize to me. So Pap didn't say anything. He going to teach me a lesson. He didn't say nothing. About 3 or 4 days later, here come the school, what you call them people that go around and... What? Truett? Well, I didn't know there was a Truett, but whatever there were, he came. And he said, your boy's not in school. And Pap said he's not coming back to school till that preacher apologizes. He come up to me and he said, look, Dan, he said that teacher will never apologize to you because she don't know what you did wrong. Won't you come back to school? I looked at my dad. He said, yeah, he'll be there tomorrow. You know, I learned something. See, my daddy was going to let me run the folly out of this thing. But he taught me how to forgive that teacher without her asking me to forgive her. She didn't have to ask me to forgive her. Now I'm back to the story I started. One day, my mother thought I gave a cuss word. I don't know what she thought I said. I don't know. But I do know this much, that she had me get a switch. She grew a switch bush outside the house. And we had to get the bigger ones because the little ones wouldn't do the job. And she gave me a good switching. And you know what? I started thinking about this thing. Mother gave me a whip, and I tried to tell her I wasn't guilty. I'm innocent. I don't know what she had in mind. You know, something happened to me. Because my mom and dad knew how to raise children, something happened to me. Suddenly I began to think, You know, my mother don't want me to be a cusser. I turned out to be one later. But my mother was trying to head me off from that kind of a life. And you know, I look back at that thing today, and I am so glad I got that whipping. Because that taught me to really appreciate my mother. Because she wasn't going to try to let me get in the wrong thing. But you know what? We sometimes do the own thing. Get around the wrong crowd and do the wrong thing. But mother's prayers will follow you. And mothers, your prayers have mighty lot of power to them. If you don't have power in prayer, get right with God. Confidence in an unfaithful man in time of trouble is like a broken tooth and the foot out of joint. This Proverbs 25:19 says, you can't put confidence in a person that's an angry man or something like this. And listen, you get to the place where you build up your confidence in each other. Say, Lord, I need my wife to have confidence in me. I've got to act right. I remember years ago, there was a storm coming through, and some of y'all heard this story a lot of times, but I guess it's all right to say it one more time at least. Storm coming through, and Yummy said, Pop, there's a storm coming. She had confidence in knowing that if I stepped out there on that porch and told that storm to leave, it would leave. So I told her, all right now, Yummy, the next time there's a storm comes up, you're responsible to stop that. You go out there and tell the storm what to do. See, the thing of it is, we have learned that. I told Esther when we used to pray over the strawberries not freezing. Now it's your turn. You saw how we do it. You go do it. It's your responsibility now to go up to the strawberry patch and talk to those strawberries and tell them not to freeze. Now, I was going this with my wife this spring, and they said it's going to heavy frost come up. So that meant your strawberries are going to be frozen. I went up to the strawberry patch, and I started to talk to these strawberry patches, and you know, I knew that somebody had already prayed over that strawberry patch. It's not going to freeze because somebody's already done the job. So I said to Esther, I said, somebody's already prayed over that strawberry patch. I don't know who did it. Here and Yummy had gone up and prayed over that strawberry patch. And those strawberries listened to her. You know what? This is what I'm saying, folks. The strawberry patch would listen to a girl. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. Because girls are not inferior to men. Prayer is just as valuable from a woman's lips as they are from a man's lips. And sometimes even more. And I'm saying to you tonight, start getting some confidence in yourself. The next time I pray, I believe my prayers are going to come through. For my wife, my children, or whoever it may be. I'm spending a lot of time on this, but I tell you what, folks, here's where a lot of you all have a hang-up. You're afraid you don't have the confidence in each other. Start getting to the place where I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to have, let's just say it like this. I'm going to start building up confidence in my wife. I do have confidence in my wife. It's, you know, I'm not saying I don't. I'm just saying that if I didn't, start building it up. You know, I'm building up confidence in you people. I go to a Pennsylvania church, I expect. Now, every once in a while, somebody will betray me. But I'm building up confidence in them. I go somewhere else, I build up confidence. And Virginia church, even. See, wherever I got, I've got confidence in certain people. I know those people is going to be all right. That's what makes the difference for me. Now, if you start betraying their trust and you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, that's going to hinder things right away. If a wife can't trust her husband, the way you do it is pray. Seek the face of God. Lord, I know my husband's not very honest, and I need help. I think we need to pay our bills rather than buying all the stuff he buys. It's like years ago, I went hunting with a fella. Him and his wife was at odds with each other, mad as a bull at each other. He had a bunch of guns. He'd buy a gun for this, and a gun for that, and a gun for this, and a gun for that, and a dog for this, and a dog for that, and a hound for this, and a hound for that. It was a hound dog farm. Now, I enjoyed hunting with those hounds because those hounds was well-trained hounds. But she thought he's spending money. It wasn't very long till that marriage broke up. And the only person that I know of could speak to that man after he threw himself away was me. He wasn't paying attention to nobody. But he had confidence in me. And I said to him, Lester, why don't we get things straightened out? I don't want to be in church. When I die, don't get me in your church. Don't get me in any church. Just bury me. I'm finished with religion. That's the way he died. And that mother, that woman, as soon as he died, she was a free woman. I'm not saying that death kills everything. But I want to tell you, folks, you men need to understand that your wife might not like all your guns. And, you know, I got a lot of fishing rods and reels. A lot of them. But you know where they came from? Birthday gifts. So I got them back. If any of them go fishing with me, they got a rod now to use. Because I got fishing equipment, and some of it's pretty valuable stuff. But I'm not going out and just spending money for the sake of spending money. You know, somebody gives me something, okay. But you know, sometimes, someday I may find someone, not you, I'm talking about somebody else. Someday somebody may need a fishing rod. Not you, of course. And the Lord said, give them one. But I'm glad that person's not here tonight. Now listen, the Father, His place in the plan of God. Ephesians says, fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. The word I want to get now is not the training part as much as I want to get this nurturing your children. Fathers, your responsibility is make sure that you don't provoke your children to wrath. Train those children. I remember, I don't know how old Yumi was, probably 3 or 3.5, 4 years old. And I made a decision, all right now, I'm going into my study. Nobody's bothering me, you understand? Nobody bothers me. Going into the study. So I closed the door and I'm in there praying, meditating. And after a while I heard this little knock at the door. And I said, yes, come in. And Yummy swung that door open. She said, Papa, I know I'm not supposed to talk to you, but I got a terrible problem. And I gathered up my arms and I said, what's your problem? Some little silly thing. It didn't amount to nothing, but it was to her. And you know what? I thought to myself, you know what? She had confidence in me that even though she broke my rules, she felt like it was important. And I gathered her up and I said, I wish I'd have done the rest of my children like that. I wish I could have kept from doing things. I used to have a temper. Still got to watch it. I used to have a temper. I remember one time Ellen back here, I think Ellen's back here, we had gone out and we can't afford it. We bought some orange juice concentrate. And she's carrying us in the house. She let it fall and a glass bottle hit the concrete. And there went all my orange juice, which I was really looking forward to drinking. And I took a fit. Carnality fit. And I began to scold her for being loppy. But you know, later I thought, Ellen said something like this to Mom. I wish Papa had told me to be careful and not to let that thing fall. See, what she was looking for was security. And I wish I'd have treated that different. If I'd have been the same character that I should have been, I'd have walked up and said, Ellen, you're forgiven for breaking that. You know, I know you didn't mean to do it. The next time, be more careful. How much different would it have been? See, that would have caused her to have more confidence in me. But instead of flying the coop, and fathers, it really means your children are hurting. Sometimes they do something dumb. It's not the time to beat them over the head with it. You know, there's a little girl that let the piece of wood fall on her toe and cut her little toe off. Now the dad could have said, you loppy thing. Do they use loppy? Is that a word? That's a German word. It's a German word, huh? All right, anyway, that German word means doing it wrong. I didn't know that was... Okay, anyway. She cut her toe off. And that father is not beating the girl up for letting it happen. He calls me. He said, hey, I'm not taking this girl to the doctor. I need a toe put on that girl. And I said, okay, dear Lord, put a toe on that little girl. I saw that little girl about 6 months later, and she had a brand new toe. Yes, the toe grew out. You know what? If that daddy would have took a fit and blamed her and accused her, I question whether that toe would have ever grown out. There's somebody in this church had a baby get hurt in their house one time. And they decided it was somebody else's baby, and the baby got hurt in their house. And they grabbed that baby up and began to pray over that baby because they knew it was desperation. They had to get that baby healed, and the baby was healed. But you see, you can't argue and fuss at that time. You got to keep you better keep your home in good shape. You might be needed. As a woman come into our house one time, this has to do with you being ready. It sounds like a hailing meeting, that isn't. I'm just going to tell you some of these things to try to help you. A woman come flying in the driveway, just a turn in the driveway, and hit the brakes and sliding on the rocks and come in. She said, hey, my baby's dead. Hey, my baby's dead. And the baby was killed a while ago. And I grabbed that little baby up and held that little thing up in my arms. I'm not sure how old this baby was. 2 years old? I grabbed that, no, in 3. It was littler than that, but I grabbed that little baby up. And it's just limp. I said, what happened? She said, somebody pushed it off the sliding board and hit it head down. And she said, I started going towards a hospital, and the Lord said, take her to the man of God right now, or you're going to have a funeral. And she come over there. And so she knew that if I could get a hold of that baby, I could raise it. And I started speaking for life to come into that little baby. And I'm holding the thing. And I laid it down and spoke to this little thing. And she opened her eyes and grinned at me. That little girl is still alive today. And that's been years ago. But you know what? Listen, you don't know when you're going to be needed. And fathers, I'm talking to you fathers now. Let me tell you, an emergency may come. Keep your children confidence in you. If they don't have it, start building up confidence. They may need you someday. They may need you quickly. They may need you suddenly. Is anybody watching the time? How are we coming? 9 minutes. Okay, thank you. As I get to talking, I don't know when to stop. Now let's talk about the mothers. Her plan and the plan of God. Rebuke not an elder, but entreat him as a father, and the younger men as brethren, and the elder women as mothers, and the younger sisters with all purity. Here's the thing, folks. You know, there's somebody took an offense because we don't go around hugging women all the time. I'm not against hugging women if it's done discreetly, but I'll tell you what, there's a lot of stuff that's not very discreet. And somebody left the church because they thought he didn't fit in because he couldn't hug all the women. And I asked him what he wanted to hug them for. Now, I'm not against giving a woman a hug. I'm not against it. But just to have a hugging spell all the time is not a good deal. But it says treat her with purity. There's the thing, folks. When you're going to give a woman a hug, there's several women just automatically expect a hug from me. That's just the way it is. And I understand that. But there's a purity that goes with it. It's not some sensual, devilish thing. And I'll tell you, when you're dealing with these women need to be discreet too. They need to be careful. And now it says that they may teach the young women to be sober and to love their husband, love their children. We brought that up a little bit the other time. But I'm saying, folks, that we need to get to the place where we train these children, young women, to be sober, to love their husbands. Teach them how to love their husbands. Teach these little ones how to love their husbands. Get started a while. Listen, love them. I tell you, a good woman is easy to love. But you can love a bad one too. Because I love some of y'all out there that don't act very nice to me sometimes. And then sometimes mothers want to take and exalt their children, and that's not a very good idea. We're going to get to some of this later. This is just getting you kind of introduced so that I don't hit you too much with a shot right away. Then came to him the mother of Zebedee, children with her sons, worshiping and desiring a certain thing of him. And he said to her, what wilt thou? She said unto him, grant that these my two sons may set the one on the right hand, the other on the left in thy kingdom. I want my boys exalted. I really want them to get up there in the front. You know, Jesus asked her a question. Can you drink of the cup I drink up? Oh, yes, sure, no problem. All she could think about was getting my boys up there where they can be seen. And folks, I'm going to tell you what. If God exalts your children, good. If he doesn't, let them go. Because God will exalt them in due time when they're ready. There's people that say they want to put in the ministry right away. You don't put anybody, we won't put anybody in the ministry in our circles until I hear from heaven. Just won't do it. We don't need a bunch of books put up here to see who hits the lottery. I know when God says somebody needs to be ordained, that's it. We do it. And there's never been a time yet that Brother Reuben and I don't agree. And that's what makes it good. I know Brother Jake said when we was going to get ready to ordain his brothers, he hadn't said anything to me. He was just talking to the Lord about it. Time to get my brothers. He's got 2 brothers in the ministry. And them 2 brothers need to be ordained. He never said a word to me, but heaven did. At the proper time, it happened. And I'm not just going to ordain somebody because they say I want to be ordained.